My name is Jennifer Liberman, and I will be doing my video presentation on the topic of astrology. Throughout my presentation, I will be covering 6 important questions: what, when, where, why, and how. What we'll talk about is who. Who were the people that first started to look to the constellations and the stars for answers to their lives? And who are the people that still keep up with this study today? Next, I will be covering the question of what. What made people begin to read so far into the constellations, and what made them think that they are relative to the happenings in their lives? What are the different meanings of the different zodiac signs, and what are the differences in viewing the constellations within different cultures and groups of people? I'll be covering when astrology came about and when people began to use the stars to try to explain real-life events. We'll be discussing where in the world astronomy began, where the different tribes and groups of people are that first started looking to the stars for answers, and where the planets, moon, sun, and stars need to be to determine different zodiac signs and horoscopes. I'll be discussing why people, still to this day, rely on horoscopes for answers to their problems and lives, and why there's so much controversy on whether or not horoscope readings are true or false. Lastly, I'll be covering how people study the different signs of the zodiac, how different horoscopes are made, how to know whether a reading is true or false, and how astrology still affects many people today. By definition, astrology is the study of the movements and relative positions of celestial bodies, interpreted as having an influence on human affairs and the natural world. In other words, astrology, in a broader sense, is the search for meaning in the sky. It attempts to explain and understand general and specific human behaviors through the influence of planets and other celestial objects. Early markings on bones and drawings on cave walls prove to us that astrology dates all the way back to about the 3rd millennium BC. Babylonians are generally credited with the birth of astrology, but it was also used and studied by the Chinese, Indians, and Mayans as well. In the beginning, and for more than 2,000 years, astrology and astronomy were considered to be the same science. Babylonian astrology was introduced to the Greeks early in the 14th century BC, and through the studies of Plato, Aristotle, and others, astrology came to be highly regarded as its own science. It was soon embraced by the Romans and the Arabs, and later spread throughout the entire world. Along with literature, painting, and sculpture, the art of astrology reached new heights in the rebirth of classical culture in the European Renaissance of 1450 to 1700. This century appeared to have perfected astrology, along with grammar, poetry, painting, sculpture, architecture, music, and many more aspects of the liberal arts. Even Queen Elizabeth I of England had a personal astrologer to cast her horoscopes. There are a few different types of astrology. The first is Western astrology. Western astrology is based on the construction of a horoscope for an exact moment, such as a person's birthday. Western astrology is based on the movements and relative positions of celestial bodies, such as the sun, the moon, and planets, which are analyzed by their movement through signs of the zodiac. The zodiac is a circle of 12 30-degree divisions of celestial longitude that are centered on the ecliptic over the course of the year. Western astrology usually considers only the zodiac sign of the sun at an individual's date of birth. Another type of astrology is called Vedic astrology, which refers to Indian or Hindu astrology. The biggest difference between Western and Vedic astrology is each system's choice of the zodiac. Western astrologers use the tropical zodiac, where the beginnings of the 12 signs are determined by the sun's apparent orbit around the earth. Vedic astrologers, on the other hand, use the sidereal zodiac, which is based upon the physical positions of the constellations in the sky. They choose a starting point for the beginning of Aries, and proceed in equal 30-degree segments for subsequent signs. Another big difference between the two types of astrology are the charts. A Western chart has a round shape, while a Vedic chart is square. Unlike Western astrology, Vedic astrology gives a better view of a person's karmic tendencies and when such tendencies are likely to manifest for that person. The last type of astrology I will talk about is Chinese or East Asian astrology. This type of astrology uses concepts such as yin and yang and divides the sky into 3 enclosures and 28 mansions. The Chinese zodiac has 12 animal signs that are said to represent 12 different types of personalities. It is based on cycles of years, lunar months, and 2-hour periods of the day. You might have seen Chinese calendars in many Asian restaurants. The different animal signs are the rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, and pig. I personally was born in the year of the rooster. Chinese astrology predicts your fate and destiny based on your birthday, birth season, and birth hours. This diagram shows us how the star signs work. For example, imagine looking from the Earth toward the Sun on the 21st of March, also known as the Northern Spring Equinox. At this time, the Sun appears to be between the constellations of Pisces and Aquarius. This is how star signs are determined. Namely, a person is born under the sign of Virgo if the constellation Virgo was behind the Sun at the time of their birth. The 12 signs of the zodiac are broken up into 4 elements that are fire, earth, air, and water. Fire signs include Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, and water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Each sign has its own strengths and weaknesses, its own specific traits, desires, and attitudes towards life and people. Generally, water signs are known to be exceptionally emotional and sensitive. Fire signs tend to be passionate and temperamental. Earth signs are grounded and down to earth, and air signs are rational and social. Each sign has a corresponding symbol. The Aries is portrayed as a ram, Taurus is portrayed as a bull, Gemini is portrayed as a set of twins, Cancer is portrayed as a crab, Leo is portrayed as a lion, Virgo is portrayed as a virgin, Libra is portrayed as a balance, Scorpio is portrayed as a scorpion, Sagittarius is portrayed as an archer, Capricorn is portrayed as a goat, Virgo is portrayed as scales, and Pisces is portrayed as a fish. Rulership is the connection between a planet and its correlated sign and house. In traditional Western astrology, each sign is ruled by one and only one of the 7 visible planets. Some astrologers do not even use the astrological signs at all. Therefore, they do not take into account planetary rulerships and the essential dignities when interpreting an astrological chart. The traditional rulerships are as follows. Aries and Scorpio are in relation with Mars. Taurus and Libra are in relation with Venus. Gemini and Virgo are in relation with Mercury. Cancer is in relation with the Moon. Leo is in relation with the Sun. Sagittarius and Pisces are in relation with Jupiter. Capricorn is in relation with Saturn. And Aquarius is in relation with Uranus. A horoscope is an astrological chart or diagram representing the positions of the sun, moon, planets, and astrological aspects and sensitive angles at the time of even such as a moment of a person's birth. The word horoscope is derived from the Greek words hora and skopos, meaning time observer. Other commonly used names for horoscopes in English include natal chart, astrological chart, astro chart, sky map, etc. In common usage, horoscope often refers to an astrologer's interpretation, usually based on a system of solar sun sign astrology based strictly on the position of the sun at the time of someone's birth. There are many different websites and books that you can go to determine your own horoscope, whether it be for the day, the month, or the year. You can also read different horoscopes that are based on specific areas of your life, such as love, work, relationships, friendships, and more. There are many famous and influential astrologers. For example, in the 1st century BC, an extremely influential series of books were written, which became the foundational text of the tradition of astrology. These books contained some of the core concepts that are still used in Western astrology to this day. The author of these works decided to remain anonymous and instead ascribed the stories to an Egyptian king named Nechepso and a priest named Pedosiris. Just about every subsequent astrologer during the Roman period mentioned and looked up to these two figures in one way or another. Another very famous astrologist is Claudius Ptolemy from Roman Egypt. Ptolemy wrote influential works on astronomy, geography, music, optics, and astrology. His goal was to create a unified system that tied together all of the different scientific fields. Lastly, another very famous astrologist from our generation is Susan Miller. In New York City, Susan Miller is an institution. She is the astrologist for Elle magazine, a best-selling author, and the founder of AstrologyZone.com. She is constantly in demand by A-list celebrities, major news outlets, and CEOs. You may have heard people talk about Mercury retrograde. I know my cousin Anna actually mentally prepares for this astrological happening a month ahead of time. As we have learned this semester, retrograde motion refers to the occasional backwards motion of the planets. It is entirely an illusion caused by the moving Earth passing the outer planets in their orbits. Astrologers who believe that planetary positions affect our everyday lives see Mercury in retrograde as one of the few times a year when the planet Mercury rotates at a slower than usual pace, giving us the illusion that it's moving backwards. They believe that this backwards-seeming illusion has its parallel in our lives, creating problems in communication, travel, and even technology, hence its reputation as the planetary troublemaker. Astrologists advise people not to make any important moves or decisions while Mercury is in retrograde. Accepting a new job, starting a new relationship, signing a contract, or even shaking hands on an agreement are all frowned upon during this period of time. I'm going to share with you my personal horoscope for the sign of Sagittarius based on the famous astrologist Susan Miller's website, AstrologyZone.com. Here it is. August and September will be landmark months for you, where so much progress can be made in your career that you will be amazed. A focus on your home will arise by next month, and this month you'll have many important opportunities to travel to distant cities or to hear news from abroad. You may also see news regarding an international alliance, a media project, broadcasting or publishing, or in regard to your efforts to get an advanced university degree. An in-law may have an idea, but you may have conversations. It's sure to be a busy month. Now I will read you my horoscope taken from horoscope.com. Here it is. Cupid has fired his arrow into your heart today, Sagittarius, so snuggle up with the object of your desire. You'll feel more sensual and romantic than usual. Gourmet foods and fine wines should grace your plate tonight. Realize that there may be an element of restraint that needs to get worked into the equation, but don't let this stop you from having a good time. Notice how these two horoscopes had very little, if not no similarities between them. Why is that? No scientific studies have shown support for the accuracy of horoscopes, and the methods used to make interpretations are pseudoscientific, which means it does not adhere to the scientific method. Scientific testing of astrology has been conducted, but no evidence had been found to support the effects outlined in astrological traditions. Astrologers often avoid making verifiable predictions and instead rely on vague statements that let them try to avoid falsification. Falsification is the process of trying to disprove information or a theory. When specific predictions from astrologers were tested in experimental procedures, they were often falsified. All controlled experiments have failed to show any effect. One experiment to prove validity of astrology was the Sean Carlson's double-blind chart matching tests, in which 28 astrologers agreed to match over 100 natal charts to psychological profiles generated by the California Psychological Inventory. In 1985, the study found that predictions based on natal astrology were no better than chance, and that the testing clearly regulates the astrological hypothesis. Scientist and former astrologer Jeffrey Dean and psychologist Ivan Kelly conducted another large-scale scientific test involving more than 100 cognitive, behavioral, physical, and other variables, but also found no support for astrology. Astrology has been around almost near forever. Have looked to the stars for answers for thousands and thousands of years. Although astrology is not the most correct and accurate way of predicting the future or looking for answers, it is still something that many people still use today. In my opinion, people have great satisfaction in pointing it out whenever their preconceptions match their surroundings. Generic descriptions that most people can adapt into descriptions of themselves are like having personal gratification, especially when there is practically no way to be wrong about how you perceive yourself. On some level, people find these readings to be true or relevant in some way. Everybody wants answers, and sometimes these readings are what give people hope or an explanation to their lives. Either way, astrology has been and will continue to be a part of our world for many years to come, and I very much enjoyed learning and sharing with you the different aspects of this interesting astronomical topic. Thank you.